The Japanese sword has a long history. In its early days, it was developed from the Chinese style. After the end of the Tang Dynasty, the Japanese sword in this era was called chokuto. Later, the chokuto began to evolve into a shape that we are more familiar with. To be consistent with the tactics and geography of Japan, where battles were fought on horseback, the straight sword was not suitable for Japan due to the limited iron resources. Japan mainly extracted iron from sand. The sand caused carbon to remain in the iron, making Japanese swords very hard, easy to sharpen, but also easy to break. The curved sword had the advantage of eliminating the main disadvantage of the straight sword, which was that it had to be sharpened straight to meet standards. Sharpening a straight sword resulted in excessive iron loss, and when cutting, the curved sword could penetrate the target more effectively. In the Heian period, it was not called katana, but a longer and larger sword called tachi. The katana began to be used around the Japanese Middle Ages, or the Muromachi period onwards. The tachi sword became less popular, as heavier weapons were used more in this era. This led to a reduction in the curve of the sword to better serve as a last resort weapon on the battlefield. Famous swords like the Muramasa were often made using a steel-making method like, quote, jewel steel or the Tatara furnace, which aimed to remove as much carbon as possible with the knowledge of ancient craftsmen. In the Edo period, the katana was a symbol of power and only samurai were allowed to carry it, more for symbolic purposes than actual combat like in the Sengoku period. Later in the late Edo period, the imperial system was established, and a law banning sword carrying was enacted in 1868. By then, the Japanese sword had disappeared from Japanese history for a long time until the Taisho era when it was reintroduced for the Japanese army. During this time, the Japanese sword was called gunto, and it became the standard sword for Japanese officers, only to be decommissioned at the end of World War II. Today, the Japanese sword is one of the most famous soft power in the world. And the more traditional the craftsmanship, the more expensive the sword. Many swords are priceless. I hope everyone enjoys this content. Please subscribe to the channel for more content in the future. Thank you.